Hello, welcome back, and thanks for tuning in to our fourth podcast in a new ongoing series here at PC360. My name is Danielle Ling. I'm the Associate Editor at PC360 and National Underwriter Property and Casualty Magazine. Today we're back with Troy Korsgaden, author, advisor, and insurance industry expert, who is going to talk with us today about how agents, brokers, and firms can achieve a 360-degree view of the customer. We're going to talk about what a 360 view entails, how it will enhance your sales strategy and client relationships, and how to achieve it successfully. Troy, thanks for coming on again today to talk to us and share some fresh insight with our readers.
Great to be with you and your listeners, Danielle. Thanks.
So before we go any further, can you just define what a 360-degree view of the customer means and why it's important for agents and brokers to understand and work towards?
It's a must. Danielle, the customer has a lot of data, and we have obtained that over years. But the data we need today and moving forward is so important because to retain and to add more product into every household and business that we serve, we need more data.
So what information is needed for each customer to achieve this complete view?
So in my mind, we need everything, but I can boil it down to two things that are just non-negotiable, a must. Ways to contact the customer and reasons to call them. And it just boils down to that.
How can agents obtain this information, and what methods should they use?
So I could talk all day about that, and I'm going to boil it down to just two again. But the first one is to make a priority at the firm, at the brokerage, at the agency level, that everybody needs to be committed as a top priority to gain all the data possible. And to do that, we have two methods. One is at the point of service, and everything starts with service, and obtaining ways to contact and reasons to call. And we'll talk about the other data, but at the point of service is one of the greatest opportunities that we have. And then we advise and train brokerages and firms. Another way is to stop everything and have what we call a data retooling day. And everybody from the firm owner to the executives in the firm, all the way down to the person that answers the phone, stops everything and calls the customer to say thank you and to update their file. We get ways to contact them and reasons to call.
So can you elaborate and just give us a few more?
Sure, no problem. I've got a library, but let me give you a couple of more here. Let's think of it like when you go to your dentist or you go to your doctor. They always hand you the clipboard and tell you to fill out the sheet, right? And that's an easy way. It's an old method that's used, but hey, you've got the customer, you've got their attention, they're used to doing this type of system, and you hand them the clipboard, and just right up front, it's the impactful information that you need. And then another method would be to set aside a couple hours in each day or each week for team members that work with you to literally get on the offense and go call customers to say thank you. Notice how I always say start with thank you, because you can never say thank you enough. And then we teach people to use a script everything. Ad libs are for amateurs. You want to say, I've called today to say thank you. We're proud to represent you for your insurance, your financial services. To better serve you, the reason for the call today is just to gather a little bit more information on you so we can contact you and that we can give you information that you desire and expect from us. If you've got a few seconds, I'd like to ask you a few quick questions. These two methods are just blockbuster. I mean, they just change everything because, again, you're on the offense and you're not on the defense anymore. And we need to be on the offense because the customer is in control. We can't wait for them to call us. We've got to call them.
So for those who choose to try out this strategy and adapt it, should they have a specific goal in mind in utilizing this strategy?
Yeah, I'll flip it around just a little bit. I don't think they should try it. I think they should make it a top priority. And the reason is because their customers are getting messages all day long. They're getting it on TV, on the internet, they're getting texts. There's all kinds of media that is trying to get their attention, and it's working. It's been proven it's working. And so, again, if we're going to block out the competition, then we need to make a priority and set goals to get that information to block out the competition, because if we don't, then we're not only going to get left behind, we may be just totally out of the game. So it's a must.
Should some sort of timeline be involved in this?
Definitely. So when setting priorities, and that's a totally different subject, but if we set a priority, we always set a timeline, Danielle, and it could be 30 days, it could be 60 days, it could be 90 days. But whatever timeline we set, we want to set a system up to where when we do the big bang, when we set the timeline, that it's a sustainable system going forward. And systems are one of the major keys to success. I've studied successful people in our business in the insurance and financial services industry, and one of the things, a common thread that I see is they have very robust systems that are sustainable.
So once you get to this point in the strategy, you've talked to the customer, you have the information you need to better understand them, and then in turn better serve them. How should you leverage the data, and how can you use it to better serve your client?
I love it. We could talk all day about this technology. The technology's there. It's just what technology does the firm need, what technologies does the firm need to bolt on, and then putting everything into the technology. It's a digital strategy. It's however you set it up, but putting it in. But information without execution is delusions. So we've got to have a technology that will pop up the information on a consistent basis when we need it. And most importantly, when the customer needs it. Everything that we do has to be with the customer in mind. The customer is in control.
Who do you think would benefit most from adopting this kind of strategy? Who could this help?
So I think it's our industry, and it starts at the street, right? And that's where I started. I was handed a big old book of business called the phone book, right? And that was the data I had, a name and a phone number. But the world changed since the 80s when I first started. And so everybody from the street to the region to the carrier mothership, everybody needs to be involved. But we're talking right now to brokers and agents out in the real world, and everyone needs to embrace this. And I talked about that retooling data calling day. That one, I've done thousands of them, literally thousands. And the ones that are more successful, they've all been successful, every one of them. I've never had a bad day. But the ones that are more successful is when the CEO, the executive team, the agents, the team members, everybody's involved. So there has to be a total commitment from the industry, and it's each one of us. We've all got to be looking for data that helps us surround the customer so we are the gateway to all things insurance and financial services. That is the ingredient for winning in the future.
You touched on this earlier in explaining how agents can obtain this information to achieve a 360-degree view of the customer, that it's not a solo mission. Everyone needs to be involved. How can listeners take this information that they've learned here today about this strategy, bring it back to their firms, and get everyone involved?
So the first thing is to gather everyone together, everybody that is a stakeholder in the firm. And the firm or brokerage could be a national firm, it could be a very localized firm, but getting everybody together, and more than once. You got to give them the message at least 3 times how important the priority is. And in this case, we're talking about data that's important to us being successful and for our survival. So we've got to have a clear communication message that takes at least 3 times minimum. And then we need an execution strategy. So we literally help carriers, firms, brokerages, agents. I did one the other day to help somebody on the East Coast that was a smaller firm, but we actually laid out a roadmap for them because there's a lot involved. And if you want to execute and do it well, you got to have a roadmap to do it. And it's not complicated. We make it easy, because if you make it complicated, then the team doesn't want to do it. So get everybody on board, number 1. Number 2, have a roadmap. And number 3, execute. And number 4, follow up, follow up, follow up.
So for our competitive listeners out there, How do you know you've executed this strategy successfully? What does the end goal look like?
It looks like this. You've got to have a goal, but you've got to look at the analytics. And big data isn't just for big conglomerates. It's for us on the street. And we may be in Madison, Wisconsin. We may be in Little Rock, Arkansas. We may be in New York or California. Doesn't matter. We're all in the same ball game. It's just that some of us are in a different inning. With that, we don't want to take a seventh inning stretch. So what we do is we look at the analytics and we say, okay, here was my goal. How much information did I gain? And so I quantify everything. Did I get X dates? That's one of the old things that we always look for, but we still do. It's a fundamental. Ways to contact, what number of ways to contact, that's success. Because not everybody uses a cell phone, not everybody uses email, not everybody uses text. Some people like FaceTime, Messenger, WhatsApp. You get the idea. I want to know how the customer wants to be contacted because there are so many different methods. If I know their preferred method, I can block out the competition and I can form a deeper relationship with my client. Whether they're spending $1,000 a year or $1 million a year, it doesn't matter. What way do they want to be contacted and do business with?
Yeah, that's really important. We talked about this, I think, in an earlier podcast regarding some survey results about how customers, they want to get everything online, but they also want a phone call. And so it's interesting to think about how you're contacting them, understanding what they want, and getting through to them that way, just getting your foot in the door.
Yeah, and I remember our conversation. One of the things I thought about is, what is their rhythm? So to your point, I may text them originally, but then I follow up with a phone call. But when do they answer the phone? Do they answer it early in the morning, late in the afternoon, mid-morning? And once I know that rhythm, then I can call them when they want to be called. So it's not only limited to text or video, but it's limited to whatever their rhythm is.
Yeah, that's really important. And I think everything we talked about today was really helpful for our readers, I hope. And I think that's all the questions I have, Troy, unless you wanted to add anything before we sign off.
No, it's always great talking to you, Danielle, and just wishing everybody a great data mining experience.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us again and sharing your insight, Troy. Looking forward to having you back again soon.
Thank you.
For more, be sure to sign up for our e-newsletters on propertycasualty360.com. You can follow me on Twitter at PC360_risk or connect with me on LinkedIn. Always love to hear feedback from readers. So if there's anything you'd like us to cover in future podcasts or articles, feel free to reach out. Again, my name is Danielle Ling, and I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. And thanks for tuning in.